Hey everyone, thanks for coming. It's amazing how many people are here. I'm really nervous and excited at the same time. And I want to send my condolences to the Nerman family, and it's really special to be here, to be in this museum. And thanks to Bruce and Hema and Whitney for helping me make sure to get everything here and everything. My work downstairs is the works that are monochrome with like the fishing lures on them. And I just was going to go over that work a little bit about myself and everything too. And I brought some notes. So I grew up nearby here and went to Shawnee Mission South High School, and I loved it. I loved my art classes. I guess you did too. And it was so supportive and encouraging. I studied photography when I went to undergrad in Milwaukee. And after school, kind of with limited resources, I was drawn to making images through painting. I don't have technical or formal training as a painter, so aspects of painting became interesting to me that weren't only on the canvas, but the culture and theory surrounding it, and essentially making it what it is today, and a lot of people are approaching that. I've always been attracted to simple, modern, abstract art, and it's pretty obvious, as most people are, and I'm curious and skeptical of it too. It's a ubiquitous thing now, and how the look of it or the vibe of it is nearly everywhere in the world and in popular culture, and particularly design and advertising and the way companies and corporations use it. So I was really interested in this dynamic of how it informs painting now and vice versa. I moved to Chicago for a couple years and just worked on paintings and indulged myself in the art world there, which was so much fun. I met some amazing people who are supportive and challenged and continue to push my interest in painting. I decided to apply to grad school at the affordable and very down-to-earth University of Illinois, Chicago. It's a heavy studio-based program and also a really great theory program. And it was great to just indulge in all of this painting and take it a lot more seriously for myself and discover my interests better here. So when I was in Chicago, I had studied photography, so I was working with a commercial photographer there, and while on those shoots, we would always go fishing. He loved doing that. Neither of us were really good at it necessarily, but it was just a kind of traveling around Illinois and just all these lakes and funny rural places to chill out at. It was kind of nice. So he was great and so much fun to work with. And actually, a friend of mine, Jeff Eaton, that's here also knows of this guy. So, but it was great he made time for us to do that. And so working with him really excited me because it exposed me to all the ins and outs and the behind the scenes of how extensive and seemingly meaningless commercials and ads can be despite how much power is around them. It helped me manage an interest in the effects of advertising on us and explore the strange relationship we have with it. Particularly powerful, ubiquitous imagery that was simple and consumable and highly effective for a capital gain. As an image maker, I was drawn to these types of images because of their incredibly staged and contrived representations on the photo shoots. These images inundate us and drill us with information. I was interested in how generic and stereotypical and stock-like these images were, like many people in photography now, and how this thinking is a really strong critique and how they are able, and this thinking is a really strong critique in how they are able to accrue a large amount of obtuse meanings through these images. So one day when we were fishing on the boat with not much luck, we were just digging through the lures and spacing out after losing a bunch, and it just clicked in a fun way that these were these little paintings for fish. And so particularly the spoon lures, more like these ones, which historically have just been made by breaking the end of a spoon off and putting a hole in it for that and a hook. And so in the water, it just has this more performative activity that imitates or mimics an injured game fish with the shininess on it, or like a bait. So I really liked that in a modern way, that it just outmodes nature and just sort of becomes the unnatural bait that can just outmode and last longer than that. So the spoon lure is one that I use, and also for its ubiquity, and then these fly lures that are pretty animated that I like to use. How many of the flies just use a very literal, many of the people that do this will just kind of find local bugs and seasonal insects that obviously the fish are working with at the time, and they'll bring them home and copy them. And so in Chicago and around Illinois, I'd met a few people that did this, some older men, and just was really excited about that, and just never did them myself, but was interested in crewing these other ones. that were seemingly generic, but, really well handcrafted, but, strived for this sort of like kind of manufactured feel. So it was fun to be able to go to some of these lure factories and see these people work and produce this type of thing. But overall, I just really like, it's interesting to me, the hyper-real version of nature that these are, and that really interested me, and so many, and how many of the things in the world were like this at that moment. I became drawn to the idea of how we're always replacing the real with a surrogate, and how something else stands into the real and pretty much outmodes it now, and only offers us hyper-real steroided version of that. I was really interested in the relationship I was having with nature, with the fish at that moment, and the humor of the mechanisms involved in reaching them and interacting with them. So these devices became this interesting extension of us, and that interested me. Here's another installation of them, of a show that I did in London with them. And then also in this show, and in many of the shows, most all the shows I do, I'll repaint all the walls just as a sort of simple formal activity, more of a simple everyday painting, and just fun meditative process to just get in the space and feel good there. And but when I repaint them, I'll mix essential oils into them, or imitative perfume oils. So it's kind of, again, trying to emphasize that element of this real, or the imitation, and the different effects or affects they have. So throughout the exhibition, it slowly just evaporates through the paint and out of the space, and so by the end of it, it's kind of just back to just a odd yellow wall in there. While I was in Chicago, I also became attracted to these sign paintings that were everywhere. And more than any other city I've been in, just every corner store, bodega, and grocery store has them. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with them, and obviously they're in many cities. But I love how they held true to a classic and handmade technique of advertising that's slowly being replaced. So when I was in Chicago, I would go to these stores after shopping there and just try to figure out who was painting these, because they had an incredible anonymous quality to them. But it was also another thing that was very specific at the same time, because each person that did these, it was similar colors and obviously similar endeavors, but they all had their own little technique to it. It was really neat. So I worked with 4 or 5 of these guys, and it was really exciting tracking them down, and that was a part of the process. And after meeting with a few of them different times and just feeling out their interest in that, I began working with 2 particularly that were fun. So I would design things by using many motifs that they used that were very simple and clip art-like. And I just liked the humor of the parallel to modern art again there. And then these works, I would, they're not necessarily their signs that are typical of that, but sort of my interest in using their marks and having them execute it, so hiring them to paint them. And oftentimes they have a very vacant feel, which I think is kind of a fun and almost sometimes a trendy look. And I like that achieved that by just removing language or the sale or the 59-cent bananas part, and just left it kind of like an interesting naked stage for those really awesome motifs just to like do their thing without that. Another body of work I was making there was these blue paintings. And it started out, I was really interested in using this like classic motif of of these dashed lines, and I really wanted to find a way to make something that could use that in a painting. So that it's a common architectural rendering as well as a cartoon and comic that represents the window. And I love that this mark presents an interesting boundary or limit on that literal and visual access of that space. So these are made with a chroma key blue paint, which you can get at like film and theater companies, and it's a little outdated now, but it's commonly like a green screen is what's more common now, and that I think is more compatible with like digital equipment. So the film worked really well with the blue, and I wanted them to feel like windows or almost like a store-like space in their installation. And And it's funny, but it just makes sense how galleries never have windows, because there's spaces, that real estate in another way. So I wanted to create the feeling of a commercial store type space with sort of a false, way out visually, as a fun nod towards the commercial gallery. But also in this work, I love how this idea that paintings need people to make them happen. So I love the idea of also historically in minimal and modern art, this idea of the aura, despite whether it is real or not, as a social phenomenon in front of an artwork like a Rothko. So this has been a strong idea in abstract minimalism and is challenged beautifully by postmodern thinking later. But I love this work's relationship to the viewer. It needs people to be in front of it to allow it to become a backdrop that it is and only is. So it needs something to differentiate itself from the blue. So I never really use figure in my work, but I feel it has such a role in allowing the work to occur. I also like that at this point, I like that this paint or these paintings also need a camera to play a role as the middleman, to document the situation and allow for it to be better manipulated later in post-production on the computer. I'm interested in how many artists today are critiquing this information age and empowering people with an understanding and methods and algorithms that are oftentimes simplifying and commodifying our experience with things. I wanted to create an analog type of work that was familiar to painting, as well as a work that would consider its digital inclination. Growing up in the Midwest, I oftentimes experienced paintings in books or later on the internet, so many times that was the way I looked at paintings if I ever saw the other ones in real life. I also like the color. I like the color. It's an interesting color. I heard this podcast once that was talking about how the color blue is least likely found in our complexion. And so and obviously that's the reason why they were interested in using it. So to me, there's kind of an interesting relationship, almost, funny decoy monochromes that offer a motif that exaggerates that further. But I love the allusion to sky and this seemingly open and infinite space it has, while almost disguising themselves as that monochrome. And I just hope the work, people are able to look, at them and through them in that modern way and feel an optimism of that instead of picturing nothing, which they also can be. Here is another different version of them. So the last work I'd like to talk about is the newer stuff that I'm making right now that I just had a chance to show at the Kimrick Gallery in Berlin. And I started making these paintings kind of inspired by the lures I had originally been using, and sort of using their simple designs and motifs as a jumping off point to sort of create my own versions of those and then copy some as well. So they're done in segments and then sort of compiled together. They use a day glow paint, which is pretty, also somewhat of a corporate type paint. I'm always interested in these paints like the blue paint or the lures that oftentimes have this, function to them or offer a utility, but at the same time have some element of sort of pleasure in the visual realm. And Dayglow is interesting to me. There's like Frank Stella, Peter Halley, a lot of these other postmodern painters have been using it, so I like that familiarity there for it. And so these are all sort of made all at once, sort of quickly, or at least the look of being done quickly, like I usually try to have in a lot of the things I make. And so they're just a wet-to-wet type painting, sort of very simple, elementary almost, and just dripping the paints with waters. And it's a sort of a playful, simple relationship they have, and when the water dries and evaporates, it's kind of just captures a nice, freezes them there. And I like the Dayglow paint, not only for its relationship to the lures and how it's used there, but Dayglow also specializes in working with companies and corporations to create sort of colors or schemes or hyper-real colors for them in their endeavors. I don't know how long I've been up here, but it feels like half an hour, but probably it's just good. But I'd be glad to, if there is extra time, I'd be glad to, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, I'd do that. And then here's a couple other sign paintings, a little more literal one that has the text removed. But if there's any other, or if there's any other, since there was none, any questions, that should probably be it then. Cool, thanks everyone.